Hey everyone, today we're doing advanced work holding for some small batch production.
We're going to go over cam clamps. We're going to go over wedge holding. We're going to cutting shapes in MDF, and we'll go over pin and dowel registration so you can line up things and cut multiples at once.
Yeah, and hey, join us live next time, every other Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific.
Enjoy the show.
See you in there. Hello, and welcome to Shaper Sessions. My name is Jake.
And I'm Sean.
Today, we got a fun one for you.
Really a fun one. We haven't done a lot of
intense
these.
One.
we've actually shown a bunch of this over the years, but we've never really packaged them in a nice way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today we're going to go over kind of productionization for Origin, how to kind of set up your workstation, your fixtures. Really focused on kind of workstation setups, but they will be work with a bunch of different types of setups as well. And really about how to optimize for production, really small batch production where you're running the same thing over and over, trying to skip processes or make process more efficient. So today we got a lot to go over. We're not going to do a big intro because we're going to run out of time anyways. We're just going to jump right into it. As a high level, this is a live show. So if Jake makes a mistake or I make a mistake, that's what happens sometimes. And we will laugh through it together. Yeah.
Make sure to use that question box below. Get in your questions. We're going to go do a live Q&A at the end of the show. And about halfway through the show, a poll question is going to pop up. We're going to ask you to answer that poll question, and that will put your name into the raffle at the end of the show for some good free stuff.
Yeah, and we got some exciting studio updates in the mid-show break, if you haven't been paying attention.
Things we've been waiting on.
Yes.
Very exciting.
So lots of fun stuff. Let's jump into it. The first section we're going to talk about today is just basic work holding. You know, the whole show is about work holding. We got to start with how do you hold your material down so you can cut it. If you haven't been around very long, this is our double-sided tape. It's kind of the workhorse of how we operate and do our shows and just in general how we hold our material down. It's a very nice double-sided tape. You peel it out, peel the other side off, put your piece down, and really all you need to do is give it some top pressure and it'll hold very well. We did a lot of research on what the best tape was, and this is kind of the stuff that we recommend. It doesn't gum up your bits as bad as some other double-sided tape, and it's just like a really solid foundation for holding your work down. And so there's not really much to show here. We'll show it in a minute how we do that, but this is kind of be a workhorse of how we're holding stuff down and in general how we keep things from moving. But we would be remiss to say if we didn't show this technique. This is the blue tape CA glue trick. And essentially, it's an alternative to the double-sided tape that people do use and some people like, some people don't. We don't really use it that much. The double-sided tape's just easier and better in a lot of cases. But basically, it's a CA glue. You put a piece of tape on your material, and you put a piece of tape on your MDF kind of subsurface, and then you put a little CA glue and put the accelerator on the other, and you have a split second to put them together, and then they won't move until you kind of pry them off. And that works pretty good, but it does, there's kind of upsides and downsides to both, and we've just chosen over the years that, we're big double-sided tape fans.
I feel like this method's really big in the CNC world.
Yeah, and I think, there are people who use Origin who do like the blue tape method, but from my perspective and Jake's, it's like we rarely ever reach for that. The maybe one time people say the blue tape they like better is if they've used double-sided tape and you have a piece shift on you. All double-sided tape is quite different, so you should kind of try ours before you throw in the towel on that. But if you are seeing it move, just try to put a little more down pressure on. This double-sided tape's activated by the amount of pressure you put vertically, and that's going to keep it going from side to side later. So in general, those are kind of the two main methods. But we must talk quickly about tabs.
Yes.
Jake. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. Origin doesn't have a built-in tab software thing, although if you're running Origin manually, there's a very easy fix to this, which is on your finishing pass when you're going around for the last time, just hit retract. Move the spindle all the way up, move it forward a little bit, and hit plunge and continue on. And do that 2 or 3 times. Same thing as tabs. You can kind of place them wherever you want. It works quite well. Maybe Jake could just
I think it's worth it.
Show that real quick.
You can also wait till like your last depth pass too. So your tab is really thin and small.
Correct. Yeah, I would only do this kind of trick on the final pass. I would just cut normally until you get to the end and then do that. But we'll do a quick air cut to show how this works.
All right. Scan this in real quick. Give myself a circle.
Yep. So let's say we're cutting out this circle. It's an outside cut, and we just want to basically remove the circle without it flying apart. And so, Jake, we're going to fake our depth here, but you'll get the picture.
Doo-doo-doo.
Does that make the sound when you hit the go button?
It does.
In air cut mode?
Yeah, you can never hear it because of the spindle, but
it's so loud.
it's really subtle.
So yeah, you see he just hopped over that and left a little area uncut. And I would say for this circle, I'd probably do like three of those maybe.
Yeah, triangulate it.
And then, you can either come back at the end with a chisel and pop them out or, yeah, that's probably the best way.
Boom.
So easy way to do it manually if you're driving Origin manually. Now, if you're using Bench Pilot, obviously this isn't, you can't do this with Bench Pilot, but you could go into Studio and break up the pass for that shape so that you leave tabs where it's not cutting the full shape. The negative there is obviously that the file is not going to be as flexible. So if you need to change offsets and all those types of things, you may run into other problems. But in general, just wanted to mention tabs are an option in both ways, but takes a little bit of work on the file side. Mm-hmm. So that's tabs. You have a question?
Onion skin.
That's where we're going next, Jakey.
I got excited.
All right.
That's my go-to.
You. Why don't you give this one?
We got the onion skin. That really is just leaving a very thin layer of your material, i.e. not cutting all the way through, so that it has more support, especially on small pieces, really tiny pieces. I'm always leaving that onion skin so it doesn't get knocked loose, especially on the finish pass, because it's a lot of side load on a tiny little thing. And if it's just got double-sided tape or anything for that matter, holding it in place. So an onion skin, if I'm cutting through 1/4 inch material, I might cut 0.24.
Yeah.
So a 0.01 thick layer of wood left over.
Yeah, and generally, if you get it correct, which Origin's Z-axis is very precise, you can practically peel that thing out, and it'll just splinter all the bottom fibers. Now, one thing that I do got to remember, when you peel it up, you don't want to peel it out. You want to push it through.
Yes, or you'll tear the grain off of the piece that you care about.
That's right. You might tear the grain up on the bottom side. So always push through, and then it'll kind of break outward instead of breaking out the grain on the inside. So that's onion skin, and we use that a lot, especially if I'm cutting stuff where I'm like, it's not really held down, or I have a lot of small parts. Like that's a really good method. And then even if I'm cutting something bigger, sometimes I'll leave a thicker onion skin and then I'll just jigsaw it out and trim it at the router table with a flush trim bit, which is, you can even do that with onion skin if you're not getting as clean of a breakout. Just break it out and run it around the pattern bit for a few seconds and you'll have a perfect clean edge.
Yeah. And in theory, you can use Origin. If you do your depth passes and your finish pass, leaving an onion skin, you can, in theory, just run that same path again, your finish pass, all the way through, and you're just cutting that onion skin, but not really touching.
Sometimes that works well if you've already removed all the side load and you're only just cutting a little deeper. So that was a very quick blast through of 4 techniques that we're going to talk about as we go through the rest of the show. But now we want to shift a little bit to kind of holding down material physically. And so let's start, Jakey, by, just the basics of, how do you get productionization started? Mainly, we got to start talking about how to use grids smartly. So just a reminder, if you haven't been around for a while, a grid is a feature on Origin where you lower the bit below your material and touch 3 points, and that creates kind of a grid in X and Y that you can snap things to, okay? Mm-hmm. Yep. And then
I'll get set up over here.
Let's do a quick grid demo just so people can remember. Jake, here, I'll hold this for you. Just maybe on that piece right there, just so people can, just so if they have never seen a grid, we're not going over their head in the first 5 seconds.
All right, I'm going to do a topside grid on this guy, meaning I'm going to reference basically the aluminum clamping face and the side of something so that it is repeatable.
So after you make your scan, you just go to design mode, hit that grid button and tell it new grid. And then now we're going to lower that engraving bit that has a really precise shank size down. We make sure our bit diameter is correct. And Jake's going to just take a couple measurements by moving origin around. And he's just lightly pressing against those pieces so that he can take those measurements. And then when he takes the third measurement, boom, now we have this perfectly aligned grid that allows us to snap and place things in precise places. Okay, so that's the basics of grid. Now this is great, and you saw it was pretty fast, but if you have to do that for a bunch of things, let's say I was cutting out this little lid for a box, and I need to do that 20 times, scan, grid, place a file, cut a file, and do it over and over. It gets pretty tedious pretty quickly. So today, we're going to talk about a couple ways in which we could speed that process up by being smart about grids and workspaces, okay? All right. First one we're going to do, this is one that we can thank our friend Sam. Shout out to Sam in the comments. I mean, Sam didn't invent it, but he was a pretty big proponent of it. And this is a very simple one, but basically we're going to use dowels, you could use wooden dowels or whatever, but maybe put one of these up in front of the camera so people can get a look at it.
Precision ground steel pin.
Yeah, they're just like really standard sizes and work really well when you're trying to register over and over. And one of the things that is pretty complicated when you try to do these types of cuts are how do you register something and then cut the full outside of it? Because when you do that, you kind of erase your registration. So if you had like a piece of wood that you were registering over and over, but then you have to cut into that, then you've lost that registration point. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about this. And Jake, maybe first before we even do this, let's just level it to that first. And so we're going to talk about how we set this up, and we're going to use Studio to actually build this file out really quickly. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So let me jump into Studio. And earlier, what I did was I'll just kind of pull up this design that I built earlier, and we'll talk through it instead of rebuilding it since we have so much to go through. But yeah, if we jump into Studio here, you can kind of see what we have. So I made a grid on the top piece of this piece of MDF that we're talking about right here. And I then measured how big that rectangle was so I knew my general area was. And I knew I wanted to make about 6 per piece. And so what I did was I went ahead and designed my box lid. And then I went in here and I kind of made a rough area based on these cuts that I'd made. Like if you kind of take a look at the front camera here for a second, I made a bunch of these blanks so I could batch process these out. And so this is a little bit smaller than this, but it makes it so that I can register this and I will get this every time. Okay, and that's kind of the best part about this feature. So if we go back to Studio, you can see this shape is a little bit smaller than this. Obviously, you could make it match that, but I'm giving myself a little room for error in case I screw something up. But this shape could go right to the edge of this box. And then I put 3 holes, 1, 2, and 3 on the outside of this box that would be represented by that. And so Jake in a second is going to show you what we've done, because you can go ahead and slap this down, Jake. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to start by drilling these pinholes out. Okay, so we would use origin to just drill, and I'll just make these a reference objects so you can see. But essentially all of these circles, we would select those and we would make them cuttable. And so when we go into origin, this is kind of what we're going to see. We're going to be cutting all these pinholes. And so I would cut to start all of the pinholes. And then we'll maybe just come over here so I can show you. We're not going to do this live because we already did it, but we've set it up in the way that it should work. So let's maybe go to that top camera and we can show this. So you can see all those pinholes that I drilled out earlier. I just have a piece of MDF that's double-sided tape down to the shelf because I want to be able to pick this up and put it back. And there's a key point that we're going to talk about in a minute with that. But you can just imagine we level the top with our top, make a grid. We used that point, and that point. And that's important because anytime we take this off and put it back, we're going to need to make a new grid to re-register our design to this. And one of the cool things about doing this is if we pick it up and rotate it 20 degrees, we can just grid off of that and everything's going to be matched up perfect. So we've gone ahead and cut those circles. So let's just imagine that. And now, while we're cutting those circles, we're going to be checking that these dowel pins fit. So I cut one of them and I just check the fit. And what you really want is like, goes in well, comes out easily, doesn't wiggle around a bunch. You don't want it to be too tight because then you can't get it out. But the whole point of these is, Jake, maybe if you just put 3 of them in. I should probably give you 3 because I only gave you 2.
I'll take 3.
They're a little sticky.
It's like machine oil.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Definitely good for you. Okay, so now we have those 3 pins in, and now we can register the top together and then slide it to the left, okay? And that's going to essentially register that little piece of wood for the file. Now, we're going to put double-sided tape under it, and then we would also remove the pins afterwards, and that gives us the ability to cut the full outside shape over and over as many times as we want. If that was a piece of wood where we had, you know, sometimes you'll see us build jigs like this, where it's like, cool, you just have this piece of wood. The first time you cut the outside, you've destroyed the reference marks, okay? So this registration pin's a way to get around that, okay? All right, so now that we've done that, we've cut that. Now we need to register the top of that to our new material. So Jake's gonna get the spoil board out. In this case, you know, a lot of those pin registrations are pretty far off the edge of the front face of workstation. So I just typically put my material in there and then raise it up, lock it. Then you know that's flat. Then you can move them around to wherever, okay? So maybe let's do those front 2, actually, Jake, since we already cut those. A couple more pins for you.
There we go. I wasn't fully flush up.
Nice. Okay, so we'll just put 6 pins in, and you can even do them one at a time if you wanted. You don't have to do them all at once. And so he's going to put the 3 pins there, 2 and 3, and then
I got them. I'm going to do it.
you do them all.
It's also really satisfying.
I got the fit pretty good, actually.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay, now take some double-sided tape, and what you'll notice is you can kind of already see where I cut previously. In the best case world, you don't put any double-sided tape in that channel because double-sided tape or any other type of thing is going to cause adhesive to hit the bit. So generally, I like to put it in the middle where it's not going to eat that double-sided tape every time. And so, like, Jake's putting it on the material and trying to find the center. You could also just put it right here, and then you could make sure it doesn't go in the channel. But either way, it's fine. So peel that off, stick it down. If you were using blue-sided tape, you would do the kind of same thing here. Yeah, but it's so fast. I mean,
it's like, can you hand me the blue tape, the activator, and the CA glue, or can you hand me the roll of double-sided tape? Yeah,
well, and the bigger problem is with the CA glue, you kind of have a really quick amount of time to get it right into the right spot, and then it's not going to move. With the double-sided tape, you can really kind of maneuver it to where it needs to be.
Yeah, you better nail it the first time.
Yep. Okay, so we just reference it, push it down. Same thing, and then boom, pull out all the pins. Don't forget to do that.
Or you're going to have a bad time.
Also, don't push too hard because then it'll be very hard to get the pins out. So there's a little bit of a here, I'll take this one. Let's put these right here. See how many fall off during the middle of the show. Okay, so now we have that. If we had more, if we were doing this production-wise, we'd set all 6 up at once. Same thing where we just fill this whole sheet up. That way we don't have to reload it every time. But for the sake of the show, we're just going to do these 2. Okay, so give me those. Now they're stuck down. And then now Jake's going to make another grid because we move that shelf. Some people think that when it's on the shelf, it doesn't move left to right, but there is about probably 1/8 of an inch to 1/16 inch of play left and right.
Yeah.
And so anytime you move that shelf up and down and lock it, you need to create another grid. And that's just kind of the way it works. So Jake will make another grid real quick, and then we'll plop this file on top of it. Now, the beauty of using Studio for this is if we come over here, I'm just going to turn all these to reference paths. So if you're not aware of a reference path, it's essentially a thing that like locks the file. It doesn't move, but if you import it, it won't show up on Origin. And if you go to plan mode, you'll see kind of what you would see on Origin, which is only those 3 circles that I had. So previously, I would have had all of these kind of pins as shapes, and I can just click them I can click them and, toggle them on and off. But now we want only the file. So I'm just going to select everything first. And I'll turn all of those to a reference path. And then now I'm just going to select all the shapes that I want to actually cut. So that would just be these two. And I turn those off of reference path. And boom, now we have these two shapes. If I go to plan mode, the only thing that's going to be cut are these two.
Nice.
Okay. Now I've already assigned the depth to them, but I actually need to change this. It should be 0.4, not 0.39. Do the same with that. Okay, boom. And then now Jake can just either use Bench Pilot, hit go to town, or we can cut them manually and everything will be in the right place.
Now, question.
Yep.
I'm still gridding off of my MDF
Correct.
board.
Yep.
I'm not gridding individually every single time.
No, this is the whole point, is that if we go into the design and studio, the whole design is based off this red triangle point here, right? Which is the top left corner. So when we resync this file down, we want to make sure we have a point here, a grid on the top here, here, and here, and that'll give me the corner here as the main point of interest.
Very
so pretty much anytime you move that shelf, you're going to want to regrid. I did mark some little arrows on the MDF to be like, you should grid in this area. Obviously, if you push too hard, you're going to dent that, and then that will throw off your grid. But just slight touches, unless your material is perfectly 90 degrees, then you can kind of grid anywhere. But, for consistency's sake, I like to grid kind of in the same areas, so that way you get the same results.
All right. I had to extend my probe out
Nice.
a little bit so I can go down.
Now, Jake's going to use a little hack, which is pretty cool. If you look on the screen right now, might be a little hard to see. Because this spoil board is all the way up against the clamping face, he went in the vertical slot of the workstation to probe that. So it's a very small area, but it's actually pretty helpful for this type of thing. But it means you have to pick the whole tool up and move it to get it out into the next one. And he'll use that same little area here, and then one on the far corner. Okay.
This is a good example of why we don't trust the image, we trust the grid.
Right.
Because this is about 1/4 of an inch lower, so it looks way off.
Yeah.
But I know that it is not.
Okay. Well, Jake, why don't you cut one of them? And we've heard the people, they want some more manual cutting. So why don't you walk us through how you would do this manually? I mean, if we were doing it with Bench Pilot, we'd just hit go. But doing it manually, Jake's going to optimize for his material, his speeds, all that kind of stuff.
I remember how.
Yeah, do you remember how? I know you haven't been around in a bit. This is a good test of your ability, Jake. But I have faith in you.
It's like riding a bicycle.
It really is. It really is. Okay. Well, while Jake's setting up. Done. Anything you want to tell us? Remember, this is live show. If you have questions at the end of the show, we'll go over it, and would love to show you any techniques that you have interest in or having trouble with yourself. Always happy to show that off.
Perfect. I'm just adjusting my auto pass settings.
And how are you attacking it?
So I'm going to do the lip first.
Yep.
In 2 passes.
Nice.
Roughing and finishing. And then that outside pass is 3 passes.
Okay.
2 depth, 1 finish.
Let's rock and roll.
Do it.
And even if you don't have Bench Pilot, which would obviously save you a lot of time cutting, being able to set up workspaces in an efficient manner is something that's really valuable. You can see even these little boxes are not going to take Jake a long time to cut out, but it does take a long time if you have to set it up over and over every time. And so really thinking through like, hey, how am I taking advantage of both the, workspace, my setup, the bits that I have, can really save a lot of time when you're thinking about these batch production parts. All right, so there's Jake. He's using AutoPass. If you're not aware, AutoPass allows you to kind of type in the final depth and then just drive it in circles, and it'll do the roughing and finishing passes for you. That's a $200 buy it once, and you get it for the rest of the time. It's attached to your tool, and it's a pretty valuable add-on. Man, Jake's cutting it close with that with that setup there, huh? So this is a good thing too when you're making these setups. Always be aware of your surroundings. So in this case, I mean specifically where the workstation is. You can see as it comes around here, workstation is pretty close, but he's got it just enough clearance for that bit not to hit it. If he was using a 8mm bit, he might be pushing it. So you know, got to think about how you set these things up, because it might work now, but wouldn't work later. Okay, so that's the second pass. And you'll see we're still roughing this shape out. And then right here, we're going to approach that finish pass, and boom. Okay, so Jake's now coming all the way around. Now you'll hear a little bit of a clunk. I think it's just those little pieces getting loose, kind of ricocheting off, but not too big of a deal. All right, and then if you ever hear those types of things and you realize, oh, there's a couple more I have to cut through, like you can see Jake kind of slowed down a little bit, and that'll generally help the pieces from shooting off. And with auto pass, you can always stop, and if you want to continue, just got to go find that that white dot and then continue, and then you'll continue where you left off. And then that is the finish line, and boom, we are done. Okay, now, so that's the basics of this kind of dowel pin setup, and maybe if we go to this top camera, we can kind of show a little bit more. Move this out of the way a little bit. All right. And then we just use the, one of the scrapers or the pry bars to get it off. And boom, perfectly registered every time, and very easy to batch process. Okay.
Very satisfying.
Cool. All right, so that's the pin and dowel setup. One thing I did want to go over while we're here. Okay, so let's say you didn't do the pin and dowel setup, and you had just cut this out. Let's just say you didn't even register or grid it. You just cut the shape out, and you wanted to cut a second one. Okay, this is a little pro tip. I was going to do it later in the show, but I realized we can just get it over with now. So if you had to pry it off, and this is a lid for a box, so we need to fit it and see if the offset's correct. And let's say we didn't know and we couldn't bring the box over here for some reason. What I like to do is make sure that your outside cut goes into the MDF just a little bit. So you can see it here.
Just a shadow.
Just a shadow. And then we can peel this up, bring it over here and test fit it in our box until we decide if it works or doesn't work. Oh, it's too tight. I really wish it was a little bit more. Because we cut into that MDF, we can put some double-sided tape on this and then visually register it back to the cut lines and push it down with double-sided tape and recut it. And so like if you don't cut into your subsurface, you won't be able to re-register it based off what you've cut. But if you cut into that MDF a little bit, you can always just put some double-sided tape, stick it back down, and remove a 5,000th of an inch and call it a day. It's kind of a fun little technique if you've cut deep enough into your subsurface.
We've all had to do it because we've forgotten to make a grid, and we're like, oh, we need to change something.
And you're just like, you know what? I already know where it was. I'm just going to put it down and continue. Okay. Cool. So that's that. All right. One more, and then we'll go to the mid-show break. Question comes up all the time. Hey, have you guys ever used vacuum hold downs with Shaper Origin? Well, of course we have. We don't really show it, or we have maybe showed it a couple times, but honestly, our double-sided tape has been so good in the past, and when you move into vacuum hold-down territory, things get a little more complicated. It's not so flexible. There are systems that are getting more flexible, but in the past, essentially, you have something like this. Here, you have kind of these little pucks with, a cord. This cord plugs into a vacuum pump, and then you would have to attach this somehow. Maybe, screw this into a spoil board, and maybe, maybe you can show this in the top camera view, Jake. These are kind of just some pucks we had lying around, but essentially you have kind of this like pump that goes through with like little cutouts, and then these kind of like foamy suctions that your material goes on. And then you turn on the vacuum pump and put your material on it, and it sucks the material into these things, and then you can cut it. Now, obviously, if you cut into one of these pucks, then it no longer sucks, and your part will get moved around and whatnot. And you kind of have to plan out where your files are going to be, where you're cutting. There's more complexity involved in using these, but clearly, if you are batch productionizing, this can save you a lot of time. If you're like, I just need to cut the same box lid 200 times today or 100 times today, like, yeah, maybe it's worth setting this up and getting it set up so you can like plop all your pieces down and not have to worry about double-sided tape.
Especially if you're cutting localized features into something like a drawer pull.
Correct.
And you have a solid rectangle that you're just throwing down. Double-sided, if you're doing 50 of them, using double-sided tape for every single one is going to be a pain.
Yeah, if you're only cutting surface-level features and you're not cutting all the way through your material, then yeah, it definitely makes it a lot easier. If you're just cutting signs and engraving signs all day, yes, build a little jig. There's a bunch of companies that have come out with new innovations like vacuum mats where you can cut through them and little dog holes that, quickly align to things. So there's so many different companies out there that are coming out with new vacuum hold down technology that it is worth checking out if you're getting into kind of batch production. But for what we find, it's just Origin's so flexible, and like the vacuum setups really start to eat into your flexibility. And so, yeah, that's kind of a real quick primer. We were going to show it, but, we may have ordered the wrong part. And then, if you don't have the right part, then it doesn't suck very well.
National pipe thread sizing is difficult. Okay.
But
quarter inch is actually a half inch.
There's videos out there you can go look. And there's a bunch of different ones. If you have used one with Origin, would love to hear how it went. And it reminds me a little side thing. I used to do a lot of robotics automation and testing, and I had this air pump system that would use like pneumatic solenoids to pump things. And like the one downside with the vacuum pump is if it fails at the pump or anywhere along the way for any reason, your suction fails too. And so, I would come back and my robots would just to be sitting there doing nothing because the pump stopped pumping or, the power or something. So
I do like that this in particular is a pretty inexpensive way to get a vacuum hold down table.
Oh, for sure.
I think there's also a barrier to entry that people think it's going to be this really expensive thing, but
no, the pumps are not that expensive anymore. And like even, you don't have to buy the best pump to start. You can, a couple $100 will probably get you a pump in a decent little setup where you can try and see, hey, does it work for me and my workflows?
Heck, you could even make these pucks.
Yeah. Well, this is where I was going to say, when we first did it, I actually built my own vacuum setup with some Corian, and I tapped a hole for one of these, and then I just used like a little like foam gasket material. I cut a bunch of X's and then figured out how to do that. So yeah, you could build your own for sure. You don't need to. It's not a buy something. It's not that complicated. It's just air needs to be able to flow under your piece and then not get outside of your piece.
Yep.
So that is vacuum hold downs, and maybe next time we can show it in a more functional manner. All right. We're doing pretty good on time, Jake. We are 35 minutes in, and we're going to go to mid-show break right now.
I know that was a ton of information all at once.
It was, and that's what the questions were for. But hey, maybe tonight we can get people home before dinner time.
Let's see.
All right. All right. We're in mid-show break. Question this week is about to show up on your screen. This week's questions: what is your biggest work holding challenge?
Yeah.
And so, whether that's big material, little tiny material, anything you can think of, a challenge you've had in the past, give us details. We'd love to hear it. There's simple things like plate is a great example for a work holding problem of how do I do this thing over and over without putting tape down? And so if you haven't tried plate, that's a really good example. A lot of people already have workstations, so they've hopefully already seen that workstation is a huge work holding problem solver. But if you have one, please put it in there, and then that will register you for the prizes at the end of the show.
Well, can you quickly give us yours?
Oh, what's my favorite work holding challenge, or what's my biggest work holding challenge?
Mm-hmm. I know this was a big one.
This would be like a bad interview. I'm like, I don't really have one, Jake.
I solve everything instantly in my brain.
I really don't know. I'd say the biggest one is probably like if I was going to do what we're going to talk about later on the show, like joinery, and I want to do multiple setups in joinery, there's just a lot of hassle to get specific files set up in specific ways, especially when you start adding slants and angles and you want to hold it there. How about you?
I think it's small parts.
Small parts?
Yeah, which, I mean, there's many different ways we've solved it. If there's small, thick parts, doing the onion skin or tabs, and then you have small, thin parts, and that gets into like veneer inlay and stuff, and that's where that repositionable spray adhesive and a downcut bit.
Okay, I'll have
like
to say, Ramon's probably watching us in the chat. We almost... I don't think we've told many people this, but we almost gave up on that veneer project because me and Ramon couldn't figure out how to keep it down without ripping it on the way up, and Ramon just pulled it out with that. We were working. That was my biggest work holding challenge ever. Because it was like, how do we hold this really thin veneer down without gumming it up, without breaking it on the way up, and keeping it from moving and. That easy tack really crushed it.
Usually I do whatever I can to stay as far away from any kind of spray adhesive, but I love that easy tack.
That was it. Okay, cool. Moving on, we have our next update. Box challenge.
Still going.
All right, let me pull it up.
Man, we're getting close though.
Yeah, we are getting close.
Real close.
Okay, we're going to go to my screen. If you don't know what the box challenge is, well, you go to shaperhub.com, and then it's right at the top. And it's what we got. We're 3/4 of the way through it. Yeah, July 31st it ends. And you can click on one of these images to kind of see more about it and all the things here. And let's go to the actual page. Where is the box challenge?
Who made that box?
Who did make that box? Jake made it. shapertools.com/box challenge. I think, if I'm correct. Yeah, look at that. All right. So box challenge. Basically, if you own Origin, we want you to make a box. And if you make the best box, you'll get $1,000 at the Shaper Store. Second place gets $500 credit, and third place gets $200 credit. Basically, all you have to do is post a Shaper Hub project with pictures to it, and add this hashtag box challenge in the project description. A reminder, because I feel like we get this every week. I'm going to pick on somebody, not in a mean way, but we'll see. Let's try this. This looks cool. Coffee filter box. In order to win, you must have hashtag box challenge in this top thing here. So,
Hashtag box dash challenge. That's really important. That dash.
So that's how we're finding them. If you put it down in the bottom, not going to work. It has to be up in the top. And if you're noticing, you might not have looked at Shaper Hub in a while. Well, let me tell you, web team over here just gave us a great, beautiful update. All the project pages are now updated. So let's pick on one of our own projects here. So
that's a really cool box.
Let's go to this. Let's go to this drawer pulls one. So. We're kind of getting into the studio updates early, but that's fine. So now we have a new layout. Works really nice on mobile. You can go through the pictures, and if you click the middle of the picture, you'll get a full screen image. Or you can look at higher resolution pictures and hit escape to exit. All the information you already know and love. The files show up here. You can click those to get a preview of the actual SVGs. One of the things that's really sweet is we now have an Open in Studio button. So if you click that, instead of having to sync that project and go open that file and everything, it's going to go straight into Studio. Do you want to import it as a single file, single object, or all exploded? In this case, I want exploded. Hit Place for Shapes, and boom, we've gone from a Shaper Hub project to Studio. We can say, nope, I actually only want 2 of them. Sync that over to Origin, cut them. We don't have to go through the whole process of saving, then importing. So you can just pick out a specific SVG in the project now.
Nice.
And then the last thing that I want to go over, which is not a part of this one, see if I can find one. Where would I find one? I know, I think Wayne, actually, one of our community members, just posted a project. Where is it? Or maybe Neil. Let's see if Neil did it. Yeah. Nope, Neil didn't do it. You can now put images in the description. So.
Oh, game changer too.
I know. I swear. I just saw one. Oh, here it is.
It's gotta be a
I
recent
believe
one?
it's this one. So Wayne's box that he submitted for the box challenge, which Wayne, we talked about. Oh, yeah, that's right here. Got to make sure box challenge is on the top. If you go down, you'll see you can have links, you can have images. Come on, there should be an image here. There's not an image here. You can have images down here to walk people through the process.
Great.
If you really want to show, hey, this is an important step. Before you do this, make sure it looks like this. And so really nice update to Shaper Hub. If you haven't given the web team a little praise on the forum, maybe go say thank you so they give you some more goodies soon.
Yeah, they reward people that thank them.
That's right.
So I've heard.
That's how it works. Okay, moving on. Let me see what we got here. We have, studio update. Okay, so I got the Shaper Hub update out of the way, accidentally. Let's jump into Studio, and I want to talk about 2 new Studio features we've all been waiting on.
This is a really big one.
And very excited to do. Let me just delete this and this. Okay, so update number 1, and we're just going to do this in the simplest form possible. I'm going to make a rectangle. I'll make it a little bigger so we can play with it a little bit. All right. We've all known that we added the radius feature pretty recently where we can do, radius all the corners, and that's great. But what we really want to do, and I'm just going to set this back to 0. But what we really want to do is change the radius of this corner. So I'm going to go ahead and select my shape and hit the radius button. And you'll notice now, instead of typing in one of these, there's a little extra button that pops up here. If I click that, that's going to take us into custom radius, which allows me to select specific vertices to apply specific radiuses to. So if I wanted to put a 1/2 inch radius here and a 1/8 inch radius here, I could just make sure I'm only clicked on the one that I want. And then I'm going to have different size radiuses. Let's make a big one here. Let's do a 1 inch radius. And now I can apply those changes, and boom, now we have a shape that has different radiuses and different vertices. So that's a big update in the radius department. So that's one. We're going to go over more of this in a full show soon, but I wanted to make sure you didn't wait too long. And then this is the second update. I'm just going to make a little sign for Jake. And let's pick a different font. This one's pretty good. Okay, so if you ever made a sign, a lot of times you're like, cool, I want to cut this letter out of like a big rectangle, but it'd be cool if the outside kind of mimicked the size of this. Well, now, if you scroll down on the bottom, you'll see this offset feature. Now, offset's going to allow me to offset based on whatever shape selected, and I can just pick how big or small I want it to go, and it's going to automatically offset those shapes. And so let's just click apply. Cool. Now we have this shape, which we originally had, and now we have this bigger shape that's offset. And so this is great for so many different types of features. One thing that we showed last week in sessions was the Oakland release. All those new features about probe points where you probe a bunch of spots in the world and then bring it into Studio to kind of build upon it. Well, we kind of rebuilt that by hand last week with the probe points so that you could use it. Mm-hmm. Well, now let me show you what I did. One other small demo. So I'm just so excited. I can't help myself,
While you're finding that, I have a question for you.
Yeah, please.
Is there a limit to the number of offsets you can do?
Jake, you guys good guesses I do. My guess is you can do quite a few, and we already challenged some people last time. How many probes can you make in a workspace? Maybe they can see how many offsets they can do.
You know where my brain is going?
Where?
I can start making dishes.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, just offset and change the thing a little bit.
Or,
So here's one where we kind of like probed this weird shape in the other show, and then we kind of pinpointed this area here. Well, now we can take this, and we know we are using this bit as a 1/4 inch. We can select a shape, go to offset, and if we do 1/8 of an inch and make it bigger, boom, now we have that perfect envelope around our probe points. Okay, so we'll go over more in the show, but big changes to the Studio with both the custom radiuses and also with the offset feature. So if you haven't used Studio, please go try it. It's free. Even if you don't pay for it, you're only limited in how many files you can send to Origin. You have all the features. There's no excuse not to be using it. And we hope at some point you'll take the plunge. Okay.
Right on.
We have a shop tour, and then we got to get back to it.
Yeah. This is a great shop, and we're excited to show it to you whenever you're ready. Let it roll.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm from Nampa, Idaho. In 2020, I built a shop in my backyard, 20 feet by 24 feet. And the first thing as you come through the door, you'll see a toolbox that houses hand tools, finishing supplies, sandpaper, router bits, and other various tools, on top of which is an air compressor and finishing supplies and a mobile rack. Next to that is shelving that holds my Shaper Origin workstation, as well as various fixtures and jigs and an air dryer. And then below that is a joiner planer. Next to the joiner planer, there are several sustainers that hold edge banders, sanders, routers, as well as my Shaper Origin. Next to those sustainers is the first piece of equipment I put in my shop, which is the dust collector. And the dust collector has piping that go to the various machines. Next to the dust collector along the back wall is the bandsaw, the router table, and a shaper with a feeder, as well as wood storage. Next to that is the plywood storage area and my MIDI lathe. In front of the MIDI lathe is the Festool Capex and the edge bander, or the edge sander. And then in the middle of the room is my table saw, and on the back side of the table saw is the area where I use my Shaper Origin, as well as a cutting station and assembly area. There's a hydraulic lift table and the MFT table that also houses the Festool Vaxis. Again, the edge sander and drill press and a vacuum. In the corner of the building is my clamping area, where I have all of my clamps, as well as the sink and the boiler, because the room has a heated floor. And then next to the sink is an electric lift table, and on the bottom shelf are the air guns, both airless and HVLP, for the finishing that I do. And the lift table works as the infeed for a 36-inch wide belt sander. I thought, rather than putting the Shaper Origin out, what I would do is show you just a couple of projects that I turned on my lathe that I used my Shaper Origin for. You can see that the bottom of the vase has a disc that I used my Shaper Origin for, and routed in a design. And then I used the trace to create a couple of, or 4 legs, and used the Shaper Origin to cut out the legs and the round circles, which works as a stand for that particular vase. It's not a very big shop, but the ceilings are 10 feet tall. There are transom windows all around and a glass overhead door. So It's a nice place to work.
Wow.
Not a very big shop, but I have a 36-inch wide belt sander in there.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah,
Just 'cause-
beautiful shop. I'd also say, like, I like seeing a couple pieces made with origin at the end of the
absolutely.
show. Like, I mean, I'm actually, okay, I was thinking, like, how would I hold that vase to cut the bottom? That's a good work holding challenge.
That is.
Maybe a mystery.
Thank you so much for sending. I think that one gave me the most shop envy.
Nice.
That was really cool.
Nice. All right. Okay, we got to continue on with the show, Jake.
We do. We still got a handful of things. So the next couple are going to be a little speed round.
Yep. And then Jake's got a fun little jig he made that we're going to definitely spend a little time on.
Yeah.
Okay. So jumping back into it, we're still talking kind of flat work holding. And I kind of mentioned this maybe in a couple shows ago, but I thought it'd be worth mentioning it again. I made this little heart box. As you can see, it's got a little lid, just, a couple simple shapes fit together, friction fit. And I cut kind of, this shape out this way, but then I realized, I want to flip it upside down and engrave my signature in it. And so I was thinking about how to do that. And we showed a couple weeks ago how you could just cut the shape of whatever you want in a piece of wood and then put your piece in it and then cut it again. So what I did to solve this is I just took a big block here with some shaper tape and I basically cut the shape of the heart out here. Okay. And with some couple holes on it so I could kind of pull it out. And that allows me to take the part that I cut originally this way, flip it over, and then place it right in there. And now I can register, cut my engraving, plop it out, put the next one in, etc. over and over. So this is always a good way when you need to either double side cut something or even, hey, I just forgot to do one operation. Take some MDF or a random piece of wood, cut the full shape out so it sits flush to the top. And then you can just put your piece in and continue cutting.
Yeah.
So that's always a great one when you don't quite have a good way to do it. So yeah.
Man, I bet you were waiting for offset for this one.
I was waiting for offset for that one. Actually, this is the beauty of being at Shaper Tools and making things. Audrey gets all my messages when I'm waiting on studio features. But offset's a great one. You take a heart shape, put the offset, blump it in, however much you want the wall thickness to be, and Bob's your uncle.
Blump. That is a unit of measurement.
It is. Imperial. Okay, next up, Jake has a very good one here. He's shown this in a few sessions, but we're going to talk wedge clamping.
I absolutely love this.
It's right behind you.
Time we used it a lot was actually with Daryl Peart when we were doing a handle pull. And it really is just as simple as this. It's a mechanical fixture that...
What mechanical fixture is it?
Wedge.
I think there's probably a better term for it, but we'll call it wedge.
I'm going to go ahead and throw this on here just to extend my pins. And zero this out.
Yeah, so the beauty of this wedge design is that, when you put that kind of piece in, there's a lot of friction holding it along the entire piece. And the wedge just allows you to kind of really dial that friction fit in. And you have so much pressure along the whole piece that it's really unlikely to move. And yeah, especially for these small parts, a really good way to do it. I mean, even for larger parts, it's good as well. But essentially all Jake did was take a piece of material, reference it there, and then he takes this little wedge and his favorite hammer. And now that thing ain't going anywhere.
No.
So
it's fast. It's easy. It's secure. And it just feels right.
And then if you need to do a bunch, you can just knock it out from the other side, replace your stock.
Bam.
As long as you've set a grid up, have the same file, super easy. You don't have to worry about it, and it's not going to go loose on you. Yeah. So really simple. You can build that one in 5 minutes. Actually, Jake did build it in 5 minutes before the show.
In fact, this jig is a diagonal line drawn on a piece of plywood and then bandsawed because the tooth of the bandsaw actually helps this hold together.
Yeah.
So it's
nice.
Even better that it's not perfectly flat.
Okay, so that's the wedge clamping, and that works really well. And probably one of Jake's favorites. But I wanted to also go over a similar yet different version of that.
Why make a wedge when you can buy a wedge?
That's right. Okay, so this one is, let's just go ahead and do this. So this is there's a bunch of places that make this, and you can make your own, but this is essentially and I'll try to show it here. You're not going to really see it, but these are little dog holes with a cam clamp. That means this is not a perfect circle. It actually gets bigger as it goes around. So the idea is you put this down and you put this on top of it, and as you rotate it, the distance from this edge over gets a little bit less. And so when you get it to a certain point, it's putting pressure, but you can rotate it the other way and it'll release that pressure. Okay. Now this is fine and good in most cases, but it can also be kind of finicky. And this is where the wedge, most people have tried this, just go to the wedge technique. But I wanted to mention this because it can be really useful. So these two go at the back, Jake, at the far back. And what you'll notice is I cut very specific holes to fit these. And I even chamfer the top so that the little pin doesn't go anywhere. But you put those in the back. And then these can kind of come out for a second. And then you'll take your material, whatever you're going to cut, and reference it against these. Now, you could put a third one here. It goes the other way. You could put a third one there so you can register over and over, similar to like how we did with the dowel pins, but in this case, we actually need this one for over here. So then you take these and put them somewhere around here, and then what the problem is you kind of need to get the right distance from here to here. And so if your material's thinner and it comes to here, then you need something like these block to extend the distance of the cams a little bit, okay? But it's pretty finicky. You got to get it, you kind of got to get it right, and it's just kind of a pain. So what I did is I just made some wedges. So technically this is a wedge clamping setup, and then this just goes down here. And then I believe if you want, yeah, this is open there. So you just throw those wedges in, and then you'll feel as you're pulling the cams, they'll get tighter and tighter. And you don't need to clamp it crazy down. You're just trying to get the right amount of pressure. And then boom, you're clamped in.
That's solid.
They work pretty well. Now, if you tighten them too hard, it'll want to push everything up vertically, which is not great. So you're always trying to find this right balance of it. And plenty of people have made, if you go on Shaper Hub and type in cam clamp, these are all over it. So you can build your own using Origin, whatever.
But these are super cool. And
yeah, these are nice.
Nice.
These are from a company called UJK in the UK. And they make little track saw accessories and stuff for holding down. Okay, there's that one. Okay, and then moving on to the... Oh, that is all the... So that's all that's the final one for kind of flat work holding. If we missed one, put it in the comments. Ooh, that's dusty.
Where did that even come from?
I have no idea. All right, so that's kind of the flat holding, and then we'd be amiss if we didn't go over vertical work holding, because obviously Origin Bench Pilot Workstation is so built for joinery and that type of thing. So we're going to spend a little time, let's say 10 minutes, going over the options for productionization with this. Okay, so if we go to that top camera, Jake's going to first... Oh, I did forget one, Jake. Should we show him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because we're
we have one more. We have one more. Okay, it's pretty sweet too. This is a version of the cam clamp that Veritas makes, and there's a few other places that make them as well. And this is a jig Sam made that I stole from him. And essentially, it's a T-track with an end stop and a cam clamp on the end, and so you use a Allen key to kind of move these things left and right. And then when you get your piece in the right spot, that cam clamp's going to work just like the other one and, kind of hold that down. So it's basically the same thing as the one we just showed, but I thought it would be the nice thing about this is pretty low profile. It's probably only a 1/4 inch thick. So if you have real thin material, obviously the thickness of your hold downs are really important. And so this is one of the thinner work holding for really thin pieces that you can find. It's just a Veritas T-track cam clamp. So same type of deal.
These are great. I have one complaint though.
Yeah, what is it?
Every screw Needs to be 4mm head.
Yes, having to use this screw is really driving me nuts. So if we could make one that had the Origin workstation screwdriver, that'd be great. Okay, that is now concludes all our flat holding. All right, moving on to the vertical work holding. And let me get you a little piece of material so you can demo a couple of these things to start. Take this. All right, so if you haven't used Workstation before, the basics are we have these kind of indexable pins that come in and out of the workstation on the top. Maybe Jake can show that from the top camera real quick.
Right there.
We have two on that side, and then we have two on the other side. And that allows you to take a piece of stock and put it against the back and reference it to the left or the right to have repeatable indexes over and over. Once you create a grid, that's never going to change, okay? So step one of clamping vertically would be using one side or the other. And then you just clamp, replace your material, cut again, and do it over and over, right? If you're doing box joints, mortise and tenons, whatever. Now, level 2 is to use both sides. And we've done some sessions where we show how to use the left and the right pins, create two different grids, using kind of the top left and the top right as a grid, and then putting both your files on there. Especially if you're using Bench Pilot, you're going to be able to hit go. It'll cut both, replace them at the same time, and continue. Okay, so that's a really good way to do it. And then third is stacking. So we've talked about this in the box joint ones before. You're basically cutting the same file over and over. Wouldn't it be sweet if you could just stack them together and plow through them all at once? Yes, it would be. So, if you put these against the pins, the second one's not going to really register. So, Jake, maybe you can show that real quick.
Pins only come out about 1/4 of an inch. So we have...
So the bottom one will register, but the top won't. Well, that's kind of annoying. Well, Jake, what do you got for us today?
Got a little thingamajig.
A thingamajig.
Yeah. So this is a jig that is designed to fit over our registration pins. We got a hole for the knob that comes off of the angle guide, and some use of the Kaivel bender system up top. Point of this is just to extend the surface of the registration pins, not only vertically, but out in this direction too. Once we start getting farther and farther out, we lose that ability to use our crossbar to zero our height, right? Because again, this only sticks out so far. So the Kaivel bender system is really
just a little dovetail connector,
just so that we should put an arrow on this, give ourselves a reference all the way out here.
All right, so show us how you would stack 4 parts. If you're starting to make a bunch of drawers or you want to do repeated batch processing, you really want to save your time by not having to replace parts, not having to tell the machine to go again, etc. So Jake, I gave him 4 pieces, and he'll show us how he'd set them up.
This is a 2 clamp situation. Yeah. Whenever possible, use 2 clamps.
I think you got to move your whole face down a little bit.
No, we're good.
Yeah? Oh, yeah. It's going to stick up above the top.
Oh, good. I actually did a whole session on doing box joints production box joints on Workstation or on Bench Pilot, and I used double-sided tape and doubled them up. But that in itself was a little time-intensive, sticking them together, unsticking them. So the idea here is to not have to do that. So going stack of 4 all the way there and all the way up. Hold that in position. Bring our clamps in. Even better if I had a quick clamp handy, but these are also great. And now I can just pop that off. And I have a nice flush surface to cut my joinery.
Very nice. Yeah, so if you've ever had this problem, we'll see if we can get these files up on Shaper Hub so you can build them. Pretty simple jig, but it definitely allows you to speed up that batch processing. You could even take this a step farther, making one for the left, one for the right, and stacking both up pretty deep. And you could cut, the tops and the sides and the bottoms at the same time.
I'd love to actually cut this one if we have the time.
Yeah, well, hey, it's only 5:07. And while you're doing that, I'm going to pull up one other project that I wanted to show. Let's see.
Grab my probe, and we're going to use the on-tool box joint fixture. What'd you say you were looking up?
Yes. Okay, so this is if you've ever seen us at the trade shows, this is the setup we use to cut these little boxes over and over. And the idea is, if we zoom in here, we have a general joint here, or a general piece of wood that's very long, and we cut these mating parts in the top and the bottom. And there's a piece that we remove off, and I'll show you that here, which looks like this. And this indexes into a very specific spot. Now, these are all little let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. These are little indexable cams, and that's what allows you to hold the material down. So it references, the backside of his, and then you screw this down, and each side's a little different. And so when you tighten it, it pushes it against these two registration pins, okay? Now, the beauty of this is while the machine's running, there's a second jig, this one, that allows you to set up another run. And so, Andy has files in this one to build it all yourself, but you can kind of get an idea that, okay, here's here's all the files that you would need to cut to be able to load a set while BenchPilot's running a set. And especially when we're at trade shows and we're trying to cut as many of these as possible, setup is half the time. And so thinking through how we would do this, this is like a really cool technique for how to keep BenchPilot just running 24/7. As soon as it finishes, you plop that fixture off and plug the other one in and hit go, and you're cutting 6 more. And so these are really kind of critical small batch joinery techniques. And yeah, I hope people can take a couple of them and try them at home and figure out. Are you going to hold that, Jake?
Yes, please.
Okay.
All right.
Jake's dialing in the box joint. What do we got?
0.678. 0.1678. Or 1.678.
Okay.
And then individually we are 0.41. All right. Using the on-tool box joint generator, I'm telling it what the overall thickness of my material is, which is 0.1663. Our width is that. Total number of pins, 5. Glue grab, great. Place. However, before I get going, I actually only want to cut 0.415. Right. Because it's going to encode the depth of this cut based on the thickness of your material, because it thinks it's one big box joint, but it's 4 individual box joints. So I got to adjust that.
Nice. All right. So this will, speed up a lot of time when you're trying to just, cut these over and over. Let's say you had to cut 30 of these for a small box with a bunch of drawers. Stacking 4 it's going to save you tons of time. Totally worth building Jake's little jig. We've been talking about this jig for a long time, but we've never made it.
So quick and easy too. All right, this one I'm going to use BenchPilot.
Oh, you are? I thought we were going to do only manual cuts this show, Jake. There we go. See, he's going to forget how to use this thing.
All right, my auto pass looks good. 2
All right.
depth, 1 finish. Let's let it rip.
Let's rip. Now, Jake's got his auto speed real slow. I can tell because when he holds down the auto button, it's barely moving. So if you wanted that to speed up around those corners, you could just drive it yourself like Jake did there, or you could go into the speeds menu and raise that auto speed up to get a little faster movement through those corners. But Jake's ripping through pretty quickly. The beauty of these box joints is like the paths are pretty simple and you can go through them really quickly. Yeah, just kind of a nice little on-tool feature. If you haven't been paying attention lately, we did just release a box joint on Studio, which is great because it's basically the same tools as you have on Origin plus more. And then we also released Box Joint Pro on Studio, which allows you to do non-uniform box joints. And so if you haven't checked in Studio out in a while, check out the new templates for joinery. We did a whole show on that, so if you missed it, go check out our sessions webpage and you can check it out. But boom, there's 4 cut really quickly. Didn't have to reclamp, and Jake probably spent 20 minutes building that little jig, and boom. All right,
Worth it.
That's the show. It was a lot, but we ran through a bunch of different stuff. I hope it helped you. Maybe you picked up a thing or two. Maybe you already know it all. But
I'm excited to read through the answers to the poll question.
Yeah, poll question and the comments. Yeah, if you like the show, let us know. We have more shows coming up, so we're always looking for ideas. Also, send in a shop tour at sessions@shapertools.com. Landscape format, narrated 3 to 5 minutes, and show us something you made, as well as what your shop looks like. So until next time, we will see you and hope you have a good weekend.
Thanks.